So when we look at the law of domestic violence, if we look at just the word violence, we understand it to be something physical or something like an attack. In Hindi, it translates to hinsa, and hinsa is mostly seen as something that is done to a person physically and actively. But the law in India, thankfully, is much wider. It doesn't cover just physical violence, it covers actually 4 different kinds of abuse. So the first one is, of course, physical violence, for which you can see the marks on the body that are visible if any violence of that sort is committed. It extends to the limit that if there's a threat to any physical harm being done to the person or any family member even involved with them, that is also amounting to physical abuse as per the Domestic Violence Act. The second kind is something that we mostly faced, but it's not evidenced by displays on the body or otherwise, which is mental harassment or emotional and verbal abuse. In that case, the assessment that the court has to make is whether the abuse was to an extent to interfere with the daily functioning of a person. The third one is something that we see but we don't identify as abuse, is economic abuse. This is where the money or the resources are sort of controlled by the respondents or whoever is accused. And the last one is sort of a consolation prize for the marital rape issue that is very prevalent in India. So as per the Indian law, marital rape is not a crime. In India, marriage is considered a sacrosanct. So there's an understanding that consent in sexual relationships will be deemed to be a part of the marriage. However, we all know that sexual intimacy is not something that can be taken for granted, and consent is something that has to be taken at every time. So sexual abuse, which is identified under the Domestic Violence Act, is sort of a consolation prize. It works for women who may have been violated sexually within their marriage. So it's not the gravity of rape, but sexual abuse, which may be any kind of sexual act which is against the dignity of the woman or making her do something that she's not comfortable doing, will be covered under the Domestic Violence Act as sexual abuse.